Hi, my name is Hilary. I work as a fish biologist in the California Central Valley office of NOAA Fisheries of the West Coast region, in the heart of California Central Valley salmon country. So my job as a fish biologist, I primarily work on the San Joaquin River Restoration Program, which is the second largest river restoration program in the country. And I work to help preserve endangered salmonids and sturgeon that are anadromous here in the Central Valley of California. So a typical day for me, some days I'm doing a lot of collaboration with either colleagues or stakeholders or folks in other agencies or folks in NGOs, trying to most efficiently preserve and help the species that we manage, which are salmon, steelhead, and green sturgeon here in the Central Valley. Other days I spend on my own quite a bit, either researching or writing different documents that help support the Endangered Species Act and help and support actions that we're doing to recover these species. On my very best days, I get to be out here either on the river or at the ocean, or telling people why I love my job and why salmon and steelhead and sturgeon are so important to the Central Valley ecosystem. The program that I work for, the San Joaquin River Restoration Program, has a goal of reintroducing spring run Chinook salmon back into the San Joaquin ecosystem. This watershed is characterized by large high mountains in the eastern Sierras that hold quite a bit of snow from the cold and wet winter season that we have here in California. And that snow melts very slowly throughout the summer months, and so it feeds the rivers and streams this very cold, very clean, very clear water all throughout the year. And spring run Chinook salmon are special because they come up the river when we have large flows like behind me, and then can access those high mountain streams. And they hang out in the Central Valley all summer long and then spawn in the fall. And our hottest time of the year is in the summer. So these fish need to be able to survive when it's the hottest here. And they are a cold water species. So those slow snow melts really help them persist. When we created the rim dams here in California, which are extremely important to our economy, we blocked off quite a bit of that habitat for both salmon and steelhead species. But they are also very ecologically important. They're what's called a keystone species, meaning that they influence every single habitat that they live in. And so since they are born in freshwater and then move through the delta, the estuary, and finally into the ocean, where they grow up and spend a couple of years and then move back into freshwater, they influence many, many different ecosystems and are extremely important to each of those ecosystems. A salmon stream or a salmon river without salmon will slowly start to wilt. Not only do adults physically change the habitats when they come back and make redds and move rocks around, but those nutrients provided by the carcasses of the adults also provides marine nutrients, and it's the only way that the areas can get these marine nutrients to help with the trees and all of the other organisms that live in the river, including bears and otters, bobcats, coyotes. Everything really is influenced by the salmon that come back, including the people who used to live in the Central Valley. So the Native Americans who relied on those salmon runs for both food, and they're extremely culturally important and show all sorts of different relationships between the river and the people who were here. So salmon are important to preserve because they are economically important, they're ecologically important as a keystone species, and they're culturally important as well. And so managing these species, one of the things that we need to think about quite a bit is climate change. We've been seeing much more radical climate here in the Central Valley, whereas we used to depend on what we thought of as a normal water year. We're seeing longer droughts, so longer dry periods interspersed with these very wet periods, like this year, which is different than what we have built our infrastructure and our management plans on. Most of our management and infrastructure is built on normal year types, and so we are going to have to adapt to this new changing climate to really be able to utilize the river for both the salmon and for the people who rely on it, because we all need to be able to work together. That's one of the reasons that partnerships with our water users and the folks who need water in the area are so very important. In the San Joaquin River Restoration Program, my primary job is working on a huge recovery effort here in the Central Valley, and we've seen some really great successes. So we're bringing back spring run Chinook salmon to the San Joaquin River watershed where they've been extirpated, which means that they're not extinct as a species, but they are extinct from that specific area. We've been releasing juveniles since 2014, and since 2019 we've seen adults return successfully. And what this tells us is that these areas can still support salmon even though they aren't currently in the area. So that's one of the ways that we're supporting endangered species here in the Central Valley. If you would like to know more about supporting endangered salmon species, you can go to our website, fisheries.noaa.gov, to learn how you can be a salmon steward.
Hi, my name is Daniel Studt. I'm the Recreational Fisheries Coordinator for NOAA Fisheries West Coast Regional Office based out of Long Beach, California. NOAA Fisheries is the branch of NOAA responsible for the stewardship of our nation's ocean resources and their habitats. I work with the fishing community, fisheries managers, and fisheries scientists on recreational fishing opportunities and stewardship throughout the West Coast. My days are pretty variable. I can be giving a presentation to a fishing club or meeting stakeholders at a fishing show one day, or in online Pacific Fishery Management Council meetings all the next. And while most of my days are typically spent in an office, I enjoy the opportunities to get out at sea on our rockfish hook and line surveys and talking with the people and communities that depend on our ocean resources. One thing that I've been hearing and seeing is that climate change is impacting our fish and fishing communities today. In recent years on the West Coast, there's things like the marine heat wave known as the blob. It's caused important forage fish to move closer to shore, and whales have been moving closer to shore to feed on these fish, resulting in them becoming entangled at higher rates in fishing gear. The blob has even shifted the distribution of species like Pacific bluefin and albacore, and we've seen increased drought and temperatures on the West Coast as well that have been impacting salmon and steelhead. Climate change has been and will continue to affect our nation's ocean resources and their habitats. These environmental changes impact every aspect of our mission, from managing fisheries and aquaculture to conserving protected resources and vital habitats. There is much at risk. For example, fisheries support more than 1.7 million jobs and $244 billion in economic activity in the United States every year. Coastal habitats provide important services, including nursery areas for fish and protected species, and protection for people and property from storms and flooding. A recently released assessment of 64 federally managed West Coast species found that 67% of them are at least moderately vulnerable to climate change, while 23% were highly or very highly vulnerable. We are working on improving our understanding of how species shift in response to warming waters. Our researchers are also completing climate vulnerability assessments that can be used to inform fisheries management and species protections. And healthy habitats are also foundation to our nation's fisheries, as well as to resilient coastal ecosystems. NOAA Fisheries works with the recreational fishing communities to identify habitat priorities in Northern California and Northern Washington watersheds, while also collaborating on opportunities of habitat restoration involving recreational fishing partnerships with the National Fish Habitat Partnership. Habitat is going to be particularly important as climate change continues to, and increasingly will, affect seasonal flow patterns, including drought and elevated stream flows and temperatures within river basins. NOAA Fisheries works with federal, state, and tribal agencies to minimize these effects on migrating salmon and steelhead while implementing climate resilience through things like habitat improvement and fish passage. And while we're already feeling the effects of climate change, it's not too late to get involved. The actions we take at home, school, and work affect our planet. Visit fisheries.noaa.gov or citizenscience.gov to learn how you can get involved.